Were you told to not drink grapefruit juice while you were on statins? Were you told why? Well, it may not be an issue for those of us who reject statins or no longer take them, but it'd be interesting to find out what's behind the statin-grapefruit connection. Stay tuned. Many years ago, I was at a breakfast at a conference with a fellow employee, and he told me that he could no longer drink grapefruit juice. And I remember asking, well, why is that? That seems like an odd thing. And he told me he was on this new medication called statins, and that he couldn't drink grapefruit juice while he was on them. And I asked him, well, did he know what the connection was? And he really didn't. He just knew he was told not to do it. My question is, when we're told something like this, the medical profession owes it to us to explain to us exactly why. Is it because an alien is going to pop out of our chest if we drink grapefruit juice with our statins? Or is it we're going to be maybe tired from it? Or it's going to become ineffective? That's important, because if it's the alien chest popping thing, well, if we've discovered that we've accidentally drank some grapefruit juice, maybe in a punch at a party or something, we've got to get to the ER. If it's just a matter of it's going to make the statin ineffective for this particular dose, or to make us tired or something like that, well, then it's probably not such a big deal. I'll cut to the chase. The truth is kind of somewhere in between. A one-time occurrence probably won't hurt, but it's not something that you want to do repeatedly. So now let's look at why. From an article in Medical News Today, What to Know About Grapefruit and Statins, they have this to say. Essentially, compounds in grapefruit prevent the body from metabolizing statins normally, which increases their concentration in a person's blood. Oh, this is a first hint of what's going on here. They go on to say, normally when a person consumes statins without grapefruit juice, the enzyme, and they give the enzyme designation. I'm not a biologist, so I don't know the nomenclature, but it's easy enough to just accept that there is an enzyme with this designation, breaks them down within the intestines and the liver. This process normally lowers the amount of statins reaching the bloodstream. So just in the natural course of your human physiology, when you take a statin, a lot of it gets lost in the intestines, so to speak, and it's what gets past this enzymatic action is what gets into your bloodstream. And then they go on to say, however, and I'm not even going to try this one, it's a compound that occur naturally in grapefruit deactivate the enzyme, preventing it from breaking down statins. Therefore, the body absorbs more statins than normal from the gut and the bloodstream. So there you have it. What the grapefruit does basically is it increases the concentration of the statin that you've taken in your bloodstream by allowing all of it through, rather than, as in most cases where this enzyme in our intestines breaks down a lot of it and a lot of it doesn't get through. So from another article that I chased from this one, Grapefruit Juice and Statins, from Harvard Health Publishing, they gave this chart here, and it basically gives the various different statins that were available at the time that this was published, and some of them have a large effect, and some of them have a little or no effect. So the ones that have a big effect, as they say in this chart, Lipitor or Cerivastatin, Mevacor, and Zocor, and the others have little or no effect. Well, what's happening here is the CYP3A4 enzyme, which I mentioned before, is the enzyme that breaks down the statins in this big effect side of the chart. There's a different enzyme which breaks down the statins in the ones that are affected less. So apparently the grapefruit juice only affects that one particular enzyme that breaks down these statins, but not the other particular enzyme that breaks down the others. Now, interestingly, Cerivastatin, which I reviewed before, which is pulled off the market, it was about 60% metabolized by an enzyme in the gut, which is very similar to the one for all these others, but it is a little different. You notice there's an 8 on the end instead of a 9 on the end. And 40% is the same enzyme that has the large effect. So Cerivastatin was also subject to some degree to this concentration of the medication through the impact of the grapefruit on these enzymes. So another article, and I apologize, all these articles have very similar names because there's not much creativity that you need for it. There was an article in the American Journal of Medicine from back in 2016 about this topic, and in it they talk about the pharmacogenetic effects of statins, and they talk about a study where they were given 40 milligrams of Cerivastatin, which I believe is a normal high dose of Cerivastatin. And when it was taken with unusually large intakes of grapefruit juice, a lot of studies do this sort of thing, and we hear about mice who were fed like pounds of cocaine or something and it had bad effect on them. Well, same thing here. It would actually concentrate the statin in a person's bloodstream by 13.5 times. I can imagine a person could drink enough grapefruit juice equivalent to 6 grapefruits in a day if somebody really liked it, so that could happen to them, and you can imagine this could be very dangerous. But going to a more reasonable level, they still found that if somebody drank an 8-ounce cup of grapefruit juice every morning along with their statins, for many of these, it would concentrate, at least in the case of Cerivastatin, over 3.5 times in the bloodstream. So this would be a substantial overdose of Cerivastatin. In their conclusion, they say there's a well-characterized interaction between grapefruit juice and certain statins. The interaction leads to effective dose of a statin being increased with resulting benefits, reducing LDL cholesterol and ischemic heart disease. They're actually seeing this as a good thing. We can take a legal dose of the statin and we can increase its effectiveness. In other words, going beyond the FDA approval for dosage. The risk of rhabdomyolysis is much less in comparison. There's that value judgment of benefits outweighing the risks again, and I've talked about that many times before. But they conclude there is no need to advise people on statins to avoid drinking grapefruit juice. Now, elsewhere in the article, they say it's really got to be respecting the lifestyle of the person. If they're drinking grapefruit juice, will you just give them a lower dose of statins? But that's not really what this conclusion says. So I'm really leery of their opinions on how this should go. Their science is probably okay. Their opinions, I think they're just out in left field. And what really tells me this is this final statement, the risk of rhabdomyolysis in statin users. And in it they say, the single serious and potentially fatal side effect of statin use is rhabdomyolysis. Everyone watching this channel should know by now that rhabdomyolysis, as bad as it is far from the single serious adverse effect. I mean, I just look at that and I say, these authors are not paying attention. There are far more serious side effects than just this one, admittedly very serious side effect, which can be fatal. But they have just ignored all the others and just with a wave of a pen said, these other ones aren't serious, which is what they imply here. But ultimately, what they're suggesting is a combined statin-grapefruit therapy if the patient happens to be a grapefruit drinker. And that means they're doing an uncontrolled playing around with doses. And I think that's a very dangerous suggestion. So let's revisit Cerivastatin for a moment. That's Baycol. That was the statin that was withdrawn from the market. It has what I call grape juice multiplier of 1.5, and we'll get to that in a moment. The 1.6 milligram dose, that's a very small amount in real terms. For example, Lipitor is usually given at or up to 80 milligrams. They're talking about a 1.6 milligram dose. It was never marketed due to the extreme increase in this rhabdomyolysis that occurred during testing. The 0.8 milligram dose was FDA approved, but the Cerivastatin was withdrawn from the market shortly after they got that approval. I think within a year after getting that approval. Cerivastatin, as I mentioned before, it's 40% metabolized by the enzyme that grapefruit impacts. Because of that, I don't expect the multiplier to be 3.6 like it was for Cerivastatin, more like 1.5. But if you think about that, a 0.8 milligram with grapefruit juice would be equivalent to taking 1.2 milligrams. The 1.6 milligram couldn't be marketed because it was too dangerous. Well, you're halfway there between the highest FDA-approved dose and this extremely dangerous dose just by drinking some grapefruit juice along with Cerivastatin if you're taking it. Now, that's not an issue anymore because it's off the market. So let's look at one that is on the market, and that's Lipitor. Now, this article that did the Cerivastatin comparison also gave us the 1.9 multiplier for Lipitor. So someone on the maximum dose of Lipitor of 80 milligrams, they would be getting an effective dose of 150 milligrams if they were drinking grapefruit juice along with their statins. So that's got to be a very dangerous proposition. So here are my closing thoughts on this. Patients have a need to know, and they should be informed not only to not use grapefruit products when taking statins, notwithstanding the opinion of that group that suggests it's safe, but they should also be informed about why this is the case. Adverse effects are dose dependent, so grapefruit juice will magnify the adverse effects to the same level that a higher dose would. So if you think about this, when a patient is prescribed a statin, the dose assumes that the enzymes will do their thing and reduce how much of the statin gets through to the bloodstream and into the liver. I suppose this is true of many medications, but the implication is that a lot of it goes to waste in the intestines, which may be why gastrointestinal upset is common with so many medications. It may also explain why some people have different results, both in adverse effects and in cholesterol lowering from the same dose. If a patient has less of these enzymes to begin with, they may be getting effectively a higher dose because more of these statins are getting through to the bloodstream and probably causing more of the adverse effects, as well as more of the LDL lowering. So what's your experience? If you were on statins, were you warned about grapefruits or grapefruit juice? And if so, were you told why? Or was it just a matter of the doctor saying, well, this is the way it is? If you didn't think to ask, that's really not on your doctor for not telling you. They're probably in a hurry because they always are. But if you asked and their response was something like, well, it doesn't matter, just don't take the grapefruit juice, that's all you need to know, well, then I wouldn't want to work with a doctor like that. For those of us who don't take statins, this is academic, but it's just another aspect of them that's worrisome. If something as simple as grapefruit juice can cause us to overdose, how many other foods or supplements will also have unknown interactions of some kind? That's what I've got on this topic. If you appreciate this content, please like, share, subscribe, and comment on this or other topics you'd like me to cover. And if you haven't seen this video, I recommend you take a look at it now. Thanks for listening.